Oh my goodness, guys. It's good to see you again. I know it's been a while since I did my last vlog. I was traveling in the car um, talking about David Wood. Then my next vlog after that was I mentioned about how I wanted to rekindle some of my old loves. I wanted to do music, but I was too afraid to do it. Since then, hey, I did a simple music video. I wrote a song for my dad, so check it out in the videos below. And now I'm in Singapore. I'm in Singapore for vacation, and I get a chance to visit my folks. I miss them so much, and my old friends. And right now, I am actually at an orchid garden. Did you know that orchids are like Singapore's national flower? Yeah, and they're really beautiful. I mean, I've never really had a close-up look at these orchids until my friend actually brought me over here, and tried to educate me about these orchids. And it's really, really beautiful. It really is. Look at the colors and the textures of these flowers over here. Look at that. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Love those shades, right? Yeah, and I just wanted to report that this is a new season for me, and I just really felt that God was trying to show me in indirect ways, right, how far I've come. It's been about 9 months since I came to Singapore, and when I left Singapore the last time, um, there were some memories that haunted me because of my defeats, and I've had many memories of how sick I was, memories of how I lost my career, and how so many friends kind of left me. They kind of gone ahead of me while I was stuck in my rut. So a lot of these memories were not very pleasant, and I left in that context. But 9 months later, God has done such a big restorative work, right? And I wondered how I would feel when I came back to Singapore. And the first 3 days, something awesome happened. So I just want to share with you about that. The very first day I touched down in Singapore, I bumped into a florist in a shopping center that haven't seen for a long time, but she knew me from way back. She was in a shopping center that I used to frequent when I was a kid. She's been there for that long. And I decided, hey, I'm gonna go to the shop and talk to her. I haven't talked to her for such a long time. And so when I saw her, I was so happy to see her. But it was her reaction to me that was priceless. It's the reaction, And what was that? When she saw me, she was smiling, and she hesitated. It was one part happiness, one part a bit bewildered, and she said, "Oh my gosh, Ken, look at you. You look so much better." Now this is a person that has seen me, time to time for the last probably 10 years. And she says, "Your skin is so much better." And then I went, and of course I was just happy to see her, but then I had to tell her about my story, what happened, in that 1 year. In that 1 year, basically after rededicating my life to Christ and praying 3 times a week, that in that 9 months, my immune system started to actually get better, even though I didn't change any of my medical treatments. And it's what took 25 years to reverse actually started to reverse. So I shared all that with her, and she was so happy for me, And for me, I was just so happy to see an old friend. We hugged and we wished each other the best. We thanked God. It was wonderful. And that was just my first day, right? And then next thing I know it, the very next day, so odd, by random again, I was in the MRT, or Mass Rapid Transit. It's our subway basically, Singapore's quite proud of our subway. Yeah, so I was walking through the subway, and then I saw a very familiar face. And it turns out it was a person that we knew each other 9 years ago. 9 years ago, I visited a life group, a cell group at a church, and that's how we met. This particular person always had a soft spot for me, but we never came in contact. And when he saw me, same thing. He stopped in his tracks. He was amazed and he was smiling. Didn't know what to say for like 10 seconds. I went, "Look at you. Wow. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you look so healthy. I'm so happy for you." And that was the first 2 days, you know? It was almost like God is trying to show me, well, now that I'm coming back to the place in which I had bad memories, it's like the place of bad memories is starting to become a place where you're reminded of God's grace. Isn't that wonderful? Like God is actually redeeming the memory of this place. You know, and that's what He wants to do for all of us. You know, He is a redeemer. He can redeem your place in life. He can even redeem your memories. What used to give you psychological damage, you can now be reminded of can now remind you of God's grace. And then the third thing happened. The very next day, at random, I accompanied a friend to a very old shopping center. In this old shopping center, I saw an old music shop. Okay, it's called Sweetie, right? We're in the Bras Basah complex. And that shop has been around for a long time, even though now it's refurbished and it's nice and big and new. And when I looked at it, I had shudders. I had shudders because, for those of you who know my story, I gave up music a long time ago. Because when my condition started to get really bad and I could no longer go outdoors, and when my hands were covered with sores, I couldn't even really practice any instrument anymore, and the thought of never being able to go out to perform just killed, I wouldn't say it killed, but it gave me a very bittersweet feeling towards music. Like, what good is an art form if you can never express it to the world, right? And so I gave up. So when I saw that shop, I was, wow, what do I do, right? I mean, I want to go in because I love music, but it's going to remind me of bad memories. But I decided to go in anyway. So when I went in, I gravitated towards the guitar section, just played a few chords. I'm not a very good musician. Felt good. But my primary instrument is actually the drums. And I saw a couple of drums, kind of like in the center on display. And I looked at it, and that gave me shudders. My hands itched to pick up some drumsticks, but then I was reminded of how my hands were full of sores and I had to give it up. And I haven't played drums for like, what, 10 years? More than that? And I was just staring at a drum set, and then something interesting happened. A guy, one of the people who was tending the shop, he walked by, and I recognized him. And that's interesting because I started to learn music, drums, because I wanted to play for God. I wanted to be in a Christian band basically and do worship and do music. And he was familiar, which means I must have seen this guy at least 17 years ago. 17 years ago. 17! So I tried to confirm it. I said, "Hey, you've been working here for some time, right? You've been working for some time." And then he went, "Yeah, about 17 years ago." And I go, "I remember you. I remember you." And I just told him, "I just wanted to tell you, I'm so happy to see you today, even though you probably don't recognize me or know who I am. I'm just so happy to see you today, and I can see that you have the same smile, the same spirit. I'm just happy to see you." And he goes, "Well, what have you been doing all these years?" And I told him, "Well, because of a disease, I stopped playing drums." And then that's when he took out a pair of drumsticks and says, "Well, do you want to try the drum set?" Now, if he didn't do that, right, I would not even think of touching the drum set. I was too shy, and some more the drum sets were in the middle, it's right in the center of the shop, right? And I don't embarrass myself. But he looked at me, he smiled with that gentle smile. It's almost like I felt like God was saying, "Hey, Ken, pick it up again. Whatever you think you've lost, hey, pick it up again, see how it feels." So I picked it up again. This time around I went, "You know what? I don't care. I'll pick it up." I sat there on the drum set, played a little bit softly. And as I played, definitely, simple stuff, but then it became more complex. Then I started to play like a rhythm which I haven't played in a long time. And some things just came automatically. It was still a bit rusty, but some things just, it just happened automatically. And I blocked everybody out and I just played. And then that same guy who I met, who was tending the shop 17 years ago, that I met when I started my music journey, he came to me and said, Ken, you haven't lost it yet. And those were the first 3 days of me coming back to Singapore. None of this was planned. None of it was planned. But it was God's way of showing me that, wow, what you think you've lost, God can change. And oh my goodness, okay, I see a couple of really beautiful orchids here. Oh my god, check this out, check this out. Goodness, look how beautiful that is. Look how beautiful that is. Wow. Makes you feel like you want to buy like an orchid, right? Look at that. And I often used to think, why these orchids so beautiful, right? And then it dawned on me, like when I look at, I'm not really a flower guy, but when I look at orchids, they just seem to be beautiful. And I often ask myself, why are they beautiful? Like why are they beautiful, right? And I realize it's because for some of these orchids, the colors, they complement each other, and yet they compete. They compete and they complement. And together, right, the orchid becomes really beautiful. And I just thought that was a great metaphor for life. You see, because often at times we like to fixate on what's good and what's bad, and we try to avoid pain, avoid suffering, like the plague, and then we strive to be rich or pain-free or go after the things that make people envious, right? That's what we tend to do. And actually, that's not the pinnacle of experience. Just because you have a lot of money or you appear to be healthy, that is not the pinnacle of experience, because our fallen nature is such that we will always tend to abuse the good things, or at least we won't appreciate them as much as we should. Neither is being poor good as well, right? But I've realized that, hey, when God orchestrates the events of your life, right, He causes events, good and bad, to compete as well as complement, such that together as a whole, the overall story is beautiful. And it's the overall story that is amazing, not the individual colors of your life. So if you look at seasons of your life where it is a dark season, know that that's not your lot in life, and it's temporary. It won't last that long. And if you see some colors of your life which is bright, guess what? You can experience something even more than just darkness and brightness. Together, it's a piece of art. And then when you understand redemption, which you can only understand from hindsight because God has orchestrated events to show you how this world can be so dark, but we understand the verse finally when Jesus says, "Fear not, I have overcome the world." When we come to that experience of understanding what that means, it's an experience like no other. It is redemption. And at that point, right, you realize that, guess what? All the events in your life, just like these orchids, the colors complement as well as compete to make something fantastic. Yeah, and that's my vlog for this time around. I'm sorry it took me some time to do this, but I look forward to reporting more stuff to you, because God's really doing a good work, and He will do a good work in you too. Okay, so this is your boy Ken, out from Singapore. Cheers.